We're really fortunate here at Treasury Talent that we have some access to some great treasurers. I really wanted to make the most of that and get some information and content out there for you, all around careers and networking, management, leadership, all of those key things that sit under the treasurer's wheelhouse. One of the key topics that we chat through a lot is what makes a successful treasurer in the eyes of the CFO. So I really wanted to get an insight for you onto that today and really let you know what some of the key treasurers are thinking about on this topic. So today I'm joined by Joachim Wettermark, who's the treasurer of Salesforce. I've got Alice van der Geest, who's the treasurer of Melbourne Airports, and Nick Bijur, who's the treasurer of the utility PG&E. Hopefully they can shed some light to you today around what does make a successful treasurer in the eyes of the CFO. Perhaps we'll start with you, Joachim. What are your thoughts on what is important from the CFO and the board CEO's perspective?
Well, sometimes we use the triple C internally: cool, calm, and collected. I think that's not just for the treasurer, but I do think they appreciate that, especially in these times. I mean, the last board meeting we had, the coronavirus was just about to break, and I think that's what they really appreciate. I mean, are there areas of weakness in the business somewhere, whatever? They just want to know that you have it, you're on it, and you're analyzing it, and you're presenting them with options and recommendations that are analytical and make sense. And I think going about that in the kind of an unemotional, very deeply analytical way, I think helps a lot. And just you really need to know your business. You really need to know all aspects of treasury when you're in that setting. And again, the emotional intelligence piece is quite important, right? These are, if I look at our board, I mean, we have an incredible board at Salesforce, and these are very impressive individuals. So, you have to respect that in the boardroom as well.
Understanding the business is key. I totally agree. Equally, I agree on the EI. I think emotional intelligence and that soft skills of reading a situation and reading the rooms is key. Alice, what do you think about it?
Making their life easy. So bringing complicated issues with solutions, not just regurgitating what the problem is. So being a problem solver and being able to see things from their perspective and provide those responses and taking away the problem. So then being equally capable to execute on ideas. They generate ideas and the ability to execute. And undoubtedly, the level of communication and their being able to communicate is absolutely imperative.
Communication during Corona has been made even harder, so it's certainly challenging to do that remotely. What do you think about it, Nick? Anything you think the CEO and the CFO are expecting?
Yeah, I think if we're looking, I'll answer it with that question the way you phrased it, as a good treasurer, because I think there's a different question of what makes a good executive, and if you want to become a CFO, that's a different question. But for someone who's just looking to be a good treasurer, I think the skill you need to be, and as a little going back a little bit what I said before, but you do need to be a subject matter expert. When you walk into the boardroom or meeting with the CEO or you're briefing the CFO, they're going to want someone who's very confident in the topics, the markets. Typically, you're not having CEOs who have come up through Treasury. And unfortunately, I wish it was more the case. You don't have a ton of CFOs who've come up through Treasury. So they're really going to be sort of delegating that skill set to you as the treasurer. So you got to have that subject matter expertise who they feel confident knows your stuff. But I think that's sort of, I guess you'd call the table stakes. And hopefully all treasurers have that. I think what makes a great treasurer, a really good treasurer, is people who can take that subject matter expertise and make it very and communicate it in a way to the audience. So we're talking board members or senior executives in a way that they can understand. Again, keeping in mind that they are not sort of practitioners of the treasury function. So, I don't want to, I guess this term sounds bad, but I use it, dumbing it down a little bit, just sort of leveling the detail. I think too often we are I see many of my employees who are so proud in the analysis and their understanding of the topic that they'll send emails to me that are, 5 pages long, or, and that's not what the CEO or CFO wants. They want the snippets, the punchline, I call it. You got to be able to summarize the details in a way that they can understand, and in a way that they can consume that information and do something with it. So I think that's the really differentiating skill. A lot of us know our stuff really well, but it's sort of taking that details, the expertise, and communicating in a way at a high enough level that someone who only has 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or maybe if it's a 30-minute meeting, can understand.
Definitely. And I think, absolutely. It's summarizing everything. Well, I've just lost the train of thought of what I was going to say there. There's a term that you just basically said to me, and I've just lost my train of thought on it. Sorry. But,
people have it's really hard maybe it's hard for anyone, but especially smart people who know the topic so well, to put together a 1-page memo. It's much harder than putting together a 20-page memo or something like that. So I think that's a skill that not everyone has on sort of summarizing complex materials to diverse audiences, so that they can do something with it. That's also the importance. Like, you gotta remember that, what does this audience, so here we're talking about the CEO or the CFO or the board, what do they need to know, and what do they need to know so they can make a decision if a decision needs to be made? And so I think that's important to think through that lens.
I think the 1-page memo is really hard to do. Delivering it in 5 minutes to busy senior execs, it's pretty hard to do that unless you've got a really strong technical knowledge. So I think that implies a really strong technical knowledge on top of all of that, Nick. So I hope that gives everyone some insight and you got some value. If you did, like and subscribe to our channel and help our SEO. You can find lots of free Treasury Talent media on all the different channels. #Treasury Talent.